Patrice and I were standing on an empty piece of land in Eastport in the Villages when I pointed to this one special spot and said, "This is where we're going to build our dream home." There was just one problem. The lot wasn't for sale. In fact, there was absolutely no guarantee we'd ever be able to buy it. But for some crazy reason, I picked up a stick and marked the spot anyway. Right here, with an X. At that time, that X was nothing more than a wish. We had no idea that less than 2 months later, we'd be sitting by the phone waiting to find out if that wish was about to become real. Patrice and I already owned a home in the Villages, and we loved the lifestyle. We were really enjoying it for our first year. But when we started spending more time around the Eastport area, something about this new area really caught our attention. Eastport was different. It was new, really new. There was construction everywhere. New neighborhoods were just beginning to pop up. Roads were opening up. Amenities were coming. And there were plenty of people who told us, "Eastport is too new. There's nothing there yet. Why would you want to be all the way down there?" And honestly, I understood what they were saying. There are beautiful established areas of the Villages where everything is already in place. But I looked at Eastport a little differently. See, I've been in real estate for more than 35 years, and I've learned that sometimes the best opportunities aren't obvious when you first see them. Sometimes you have to look at a place and imagine what it's going to become. We weren't looking at what was there today. We were looking at what could be there 5 or 10 years from now. And there was something exciting about the idea of being part of it from the very beginning. Then we heard that the Villages was going to release a group of waterfront home sites on Central Lake. Now that really had my attention. And then there were a few prime locations that looked across the water toward the town square. And there was one in particular. This one, Lot 9. I remember standing here looking across the lake saying to Patrice, "This is where we're going to build our dream home." Now remember, we didn't own it. We hadn't bought anything yet. We didn't even know whether we'd have the opportunity to buy it. But something about this location just felt right. So I marked the spot with an X. I picked up a big stick that was laying on the ground and drew this X to mark the spot that we fell in love with. But why this lot? You know, it wasn't simply because it was waterfront. All the home sites in this release were waterfront. But for us, it was about the particular view and the particular location. We could stand here and look across Central Lake towards Eastport. And we started doing what everybody does when they find a place they really love. We started imagining. Coffee outside in the morning, friends coming over, sitting on the lanai, music coming from across the town square, sitting outside at night overlooking the water. We weren't really imagining the house yet. We were imagining our life there. And that's when my real estate background kicked in. For more than 45 years, I've heard the same 3 words: location, location, location. My father believed if you're going to invest in real estate, buy the best location you can afford to build it on. Because you can always change a house. You can change the kitchen, the flooring. You can remodel bathrooms. You can even put in a pool. But there's one thing you can never change: where the house sits. And once we saw this location, we really wanted it. There was only one problem. So did a lot of other people. Since this was one of the locations that was in top demand, you couldn't just buy it. That's when we learned how the Villages was going to handle the release of these home sites. You couldn't simply walk into the sales office, point to the lot and say, "I'll take that one." There was so much interest that the Villages was using what was essentially like a lottery process. And we'd never been through anything quite like it. To participate, we had to put down a $2,500 deposit. Then we identify the home sites we were interested in, up to 3, and then we just had to wait. The drawing was scheduled for December 12th. We were told that up to 80 interested buyers could be interested in those prime home sites. And suddenly, that little X I'd drawn back in October didn't mean very much. We wanted this spot, but apparently, so did plenty other people. As December 12th, which was the announced date of the lottery, got closer, this started to become very real. There are two completely different thoughts going on in our heads. First is, what if we don't get it? You start preparing yourself for disappointment. There was a lot of competition on this one. We wouldn't be disappointed totally. Maybe someone else's name gets called. But then there's the other thought. What if we do get it? Because suddenly this isn't just something we're talking about anymore. If our name gets called, we're building a house. And that's exactly how we felt before the phone call. In fact, we actually recorded it.
Here we are. It is about 10 minutes before 8 a.m. in the morning, and we are bidding on a few lots, 3 lots in Eastport in the Villages. So we will see now in a few minutes if we get it or not, what destiny shall bring our way. It's a very stressful time because there are like 80 people, up to 80 people looking at one of those lots. So we'll see what happens, but keep our fingers crossed. But it's a very nerve-wracking process. I'm going to go into the whole process with you guys on how you can do it in the future. But stay tuned. So this is the true, unedited version of our feelings right before the auction goes off. Very nerve-wracking.
Now, that was us before we knew anything. There was no reenactment, no pretending for the camera. We generally had no idea what was about to happen. We were nervous, very nervous. And then the phone rang. I saw on caller ID it was our agent, Alona Brown. And, hey guys, guess what? You guys won. You won lot 9. That's the one you always dreamt of building your home on. I can't believe it. We said, neither can we. We looked at each other, we smiled, we laughed, we cried, we hugged, and we said that this is really going to be ours, this X. The X was actually going to be ours. And that was when the lottery became real very quickly. Because winning doesn't mean you get to go home and think about it for the next couple of months. You have to be prepared to move forward fast. We'd already put down the $2,500 to participate, but after winning, we had to come up with $10,000 within a week to lock everything in. Suddenly, this wasn't a dream anymore. We were building a home. Wow. Are we really doing this? This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I kept coming back to something I've learned throughout my career. If you're already going to make the investment to build a new home, put it in the best location that you can. Because I knew something else. Years from now, I was going to look out there and think, I'm glad we did it. We truly felt blessed. There was another part of our decision that was very crucial. We weren't just betting on a home site, we were betting on Eastport. Because Eastport wasn't finished, and it's still growing. Some of our friends who live further north of the Villages thought we were crazy for getting involved this early. And you know what? I understand their argument. There are established areas of the Villages where the restaurants are there. The town squares are established. The landscaping is mature. You know exactly what you're buying into. Eastport required just a little more imagination. But that's also what we loved about it. There's almost that pioneering feeling. Entire neighborhoods are filled with people who made the same pilgrimage. People who looked at a developing area and said, we want to be part of what's coming. And everybody's discovering things together. We're literally watching a new part of the Villages grow up around us. To me, that's exciting. We were very lucky. There's another interesting thing we learned about these lotteries. Sometimes people don't get home sites they want on their first time or their second time. We've heard people trying multiple times, 11, 12, or more times before they finally get the home site that they wanted. We were incredibly fortunate. We got ours on our first attempt. I feel bad saying it sometimes to those people who've lost multiple lotteries. Of course, winning the home site was only step one, because now we had this beautiful piece of property. We had to figure out what the heck we were going to put on it. So in January, we flew back down to Florida and met with the design team. Now came the decisions. Which home style? Which layout? What changes are we going to have to do? What finishes do we want? What kind of flooring, cabinets, countertops, colors, other options and upgrades will we have to decide between? Now those decisions sound like tremendous fun at first sight, but until somebody puts you in front of 47 samples and says pick one, on March 23rd, construction began. And this is where the next chapter of our story becomes almost unbelievable, because this was dirt. Then there was a foundation, then walls, then a roof. And seemingly every time we looked, something else happened. And from the beginning of construction until our home was essentially complete, which only took 9 weeks, that's right, 9 weeks, all of those months imagining what might someday be here, suddenly, there it was, our home. Right where I'd drawn that X. So that's how the adventure began. One visit to Eastport, one crazy X, a lottery we had absolutely no guarantee of winning, and one phone call that changed everything. On October 19th, there was nothing more than a wish. And then this happened. In the next episode, I'm going to take you inside the process of turning that empty piece of dirt into a home. The design decisions, the construction, the surprises, the things we got right, and probably a few things we do differently today. And you're going to see how the villagers took this empty lot and turned it into this finished home in about 9 weeks. So if you're thinking about building a home in the villages, and if you're curious about what's happening here in Eastport, or just if you want to see whether this whole crazy adventure was worth it, come along with us, because we're just getting started. I'm John, this is our Eastport adventure. X marks the spot. And apparently, sometimes it really does.